Welcome to another edition of Hornet Nation Unfiltered. Travis Strong joined today by none other than ex-NBA vet, ex-freshman of the year in collegiate basketball, and newly minted Alabama State head men's basketball coach, Mo Williams. Mo, good to have you on the air with us. I know it's been a little bit of a whirlwind for you since all this started back in April, and you've had to do things a little different. But again, thanks for joining us here today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So let's just dive right in, and we'll start off and this will probably be the only time we ask this question, but what made you get into college coaching so quickly after you got done playing?
Well, it's something that I knew I wanted to do. For one, I knew I wanted to get in some type of coaching of some sort. And, it was a professional level, it was a collegiate level, high school level, or just kind of summer basketball, kind of AAU, what we call it today. So I battled, all those thoughts, and I kind of dove into, each one of them. I knew I didn't want to do the professional side because I wanted to be on a mentorship role. So I decided, the college was the thing I wanted, the direction I wanted to go. And here I am.
So let me ask you this. What swayed you to coaching and not broadcasting? Because if I remember correctly, there's two things that kind of stick out to me a little bit. When you were injured and couldn't play, you got on the air and did some analyst work and then on TV. But you also had a podcast, if I remember correctly, the Mo Williams podcast. And did you not have yourself as a guest on that podcast?
Yeah, I did. It was this was before, all the technology and people was doing the TikToks and all that today. I was doing TikTok back in 2002, 2003 and 4. So it was all fun. It was something that was approached to me, and they thought I'd be a great candidate. That was the first time I ever did something like that. But that goes to show kind of, all the things that I've done, different areas and different, as far as broadcasting, doing the podcast and obviously coaching. So I kind of dove into a lot of different things just to see where my passion lies.
When you talk about your passion, excuse me, I had a chance to catch up with one of your newly named assistant coaches, and you talk about passion, and that kind of sums up the conversation that I had with Trey. He mentioned back in the day, back in Jackson, that his family was baseball. He mentioned about you playing baseball, but he also mentioned about the fact that you grew up in the same city. And he had heard these rumors of this young cat, is what he said, that was playing basketball across town. And he had to go see for himself. You're a year older, 2 years older maybe. But he said he had to go check out what he called the folklore of who he knew at the time as Maurice Williams, but didn't start calling you Mo Williams until later in life. He only knew you by a nickname. And I just want to make sure all that's, we're just going to do a fact check on right now. Just talk about you as a youngster and just, the folklore of Mo Williams at the time and how good you were and how much you tried to craft your game of basketball.
Well, yeah, for one, basketball was a sport that I played. I was, one of the better kids in the area. I worked extremely hard, stayed in the gym. But my best sport and actually my favorite sport was baseball. I was better in baseball than basketball, ironically. But I put in work in both sports. I decided to play basketball. And one thing that why me and Trey are so close, because we were teammates on both sides, on basketball and baseball. And he was pretty good in both also. I actually was drafted in baseball. So I didn't even play my senior year in baseball. And that was the reason I didn't get drafted. But it's all true. It kept me out of trouble. It kept me out of the streets. I was always, doing something that was related to sports, whether it's baseball or basketball.
When you talk about growing up in Jackson and playing basketball, and we'll get into the high school because those that don't know will know shortly about Murrah High School in Jackson, but just talk about there's a story that, you as a seventh grader couldn't play because they didn't let seventh graders play middle school basketball as an eighth grader. But he said he remembers going to a game and, he's a year younger, a year behind you. And he watched you out on the floor play those little intramural games against guys that were, same age as you, older than you. Said you, when he got there, he saw this guy out on the court, had a mouthpiece in, just, just running things. And he said, that's just the guy that I remember. I'm younger than he is, but I can remember watching him play. Just talk about that and just, what that means to you to have somebody, not just Trey, but other people in Jackson to be able to talk about you.
Well, for one, it gives you a boast of confidence that you're doing something right, that you're setting an example for guys that you, at the time, you never think that, those guys that inspired by you, and you're young and you're just trying to just, find your way in life, which I was. So to kind of think back on it today, being the age that I am, then, that's long in the past, but knowing the impact I had, not on just on, Trey, but other guys that I've, came in contact with over the years that, give me stories and give me information on how I inspired them, coming up. And you just never know. That's another thing I tell kids today, the impact you have on younger kids that may be a year or two younger than you or 3 years younger than you, they're inspired by you. So it's you can inspire them in a positive way or a negative way you choose, but you have that power to affect others. So that's part of the mentorship kind of aspect that I give to these kids today, knowing that I've been in that position. I understand the impact you can have on other lives, and try to give them the same tool is just to understand that and how they carry themselves. And, it's not something that's expected of you. It's just something that, from your talents and who you have become, or in the process of becoming, you have guys that are inspired by your movement. So you got to understand how you move and when to move and what to do. So that's all about mentorship in itself.
Hornet Nation Unfiltered, Travis Strong, joined today by Alabama State head men's basketball coach Mo Williams. And Mo, we've talked about you as a young kid. Now we're going to move into the high school days of what many people call the mecca of high school basketball in Jackson, as Murrah High School. There, when you were going through things, you got to your senior year, and I've had 4 or 5 people tell me this story and just say, it's a little different than what you would expect. You're a senior leader. You're on that basketball team. All the other guys are out shooting, working on things, getting ready for practice, or going through drills during practice, and you're off to the side going one-on-one against yourself, just working on different moves, working on your shot. How important was that for you? And did you at the time realize how important it was going to be as you progressed during your career?
Well, I thought it was normal at the time, to be honest with you. I didn't think I stood out. I just think I was just working on my game. I just, something I do on a daily basis. It was normal. It was normal to me. It felt normal to me because when I go to the gym at times, nobody be in there but me. So I just go back to that zone where I'm in the gym by myself, even if I'm in practice or before practice, after practice. But it's true that I did do that, but at the same time, I still, play one-on-one with my teammates, worked out with my teammates. But at the same time, it'd be times where, before practice, I will have a game by myself. But mentally, in my head, I'm counting down the last seconds of the shot clock, the last shot to win a game. Just instances or situations in the game that I'm playing in my head. And I'm battling the time and the whatever vision that I have in my head. So that's making me better too. And I always took those things in account just to better myself as a basketball player. But mentally though, mentally I think the game is very fragile. And if you're not mentally tough, mentally strong, it can break you.
So we talk about you working out during practice. What was it to be at a place like Murrah to be able to play basketball as many people has, and you hate to say it this way, but as many products came out of Murrah to go on to college basketball and move on in life, not just, NBA, but, there's a guy that's back in your hometown now serving as the athletic director at an HBCU. and we'll talk about him in a minute, but just how important was it to be, and did you realize at the time where you were at that place in history at Murrah?
Oh yeah, it wasn't no secret. Where I was, went to high school. It was already in the making. Ever since I was a kid, I got an older sister that's 5 years older than me that was at Murrah, and I used to go to games when I was young, and I knew where I was going. I watched those guys, Hollywood, Lindsey Hunter, Othello, Ronnie Henderson, Jesse Pate, Ryan Lockridge, all those guys, Sam Funches. I mean, I can go down the road or down the line of guys that I've sat and watched just coming up, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade, knowing where I wanted to go to high school. And obviously, it did happen. Obviously, we had success there, all the years I was there also. So it was great. Murrah, it just where you wanted to be. You was going to be successful. You knew you was going to win. You were going to compete for state championships. And you were going to have the opportunity, to prolong your career, to college and, see where it goes there. So, being from the city of Jackson, it's always great to have that opportunity, which I did, and I'm grateful for it. We had great coaches there. It was a school that really, it really brought good coaches to that program because they knew they was going to have good players. So all in all, it was great, to go to Murrah. It was a rivalry in the city of Jackson because it was other schools that was pretty good too.
Right.
But it's only one Murrah.
And when you talk about that, the one name you didn't mention, and we'll go ahead and mention that name because, he also played point guard in high school, and now he's back at his hometown as that athletic director, and you still have a close relationship. Ashley Robinson, just talk about what he means to Jackson, and then we'll get back to your story, but just what he means to Jackson, especially going back to Jackson State as the AD. And then, the ultimate question after that is, and I posed the question to Trey already and put him on the spot of which point guard he would take. So, he played the same position you did. Just talk about just that aspect of somebody like that, and now he's also giving back at an HBCU and back in.
Absolutely. I mean, our relationship go way back. We're best friends for one. Just outside of life itself. Our business, our jobs. We're friends. We talk all the time. Just about life. But he was a teammate of mine. We went to school together, high school together, and our relationship been strong, and from that point forward, he was a hell of a player. Obviously, he's a few years older than me, so when I came to high school, he was a senior, and I was a freshman, on varsity, youngest player, the only freshman, and we're a school where our coach did not believe in freshmen being on varsity, and I was fortunate enough to be one of the few that had that task, and it was a team full of seniors, and Ashley was one of them. He was our leader, and they took me under the wing, and my best friends became the seniors on the team, and he was one of them, and we remained close ever since then. He was a hell of a player. The great thing about it, they ended up going to college, and when my freshman year at the University of Alabama, and he was at Mississippi Valley State along with a few of my other good friends, and they was on the team. And my first collegiate game was against Mississippi Valley State, against my best friend. So our relationship goes back, a long way. I'm extremely proud of his accomplishments. We tell each other how proud we are of each other, damn near every time we talk to each other, because he's always progressing and always growing and doing things to better himself. And that's the same path that I try to track myself on. And so we're always giving each other advice and trying to help each other when we can, because we understand that this is a process that, you want to continue to grow in. So, I can't say enough, great things about him with his progression in life and with his career, his family, and just the way he just moved. I'm extremely proud of him.
Again, Hornet Nation Unfiltered, Travis Strong, joined today by Mo Williams. And Mo, we've talked about your middle school days. We've talked about you growing up in Jackson. We've talked about your high school days. Now we're going to talk about some of these Alabama days. You were the freshman of the year, Sporting News freshman of the year. You led Alabama to their first number 1 ranking ever in school history. But
Only.
And let me correct myself. The only number 1, and you obviously know the story why I don't know a whole lot about Alabama basketball because I'm surrounded by some
I won't hold it against
you. So when we talk about your Alabama days, there's a lot of things you could talk about, but we'll hit on the first one, the one that comes to mind first. You talked about when you were in Jackson, you worked on those last second things. You were counting down the clock in your head. And I think you probably know which game I'm going to right now.
Florida game.
Well, I was going to go Kentucky first.
Oh, yeah, that was on the road. We beat them.
I was going to talk about the one on the road because it's a little tougher. And right after, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tayshaun Prince, who went on to play for the Pistons and a whole host of other teams, was on that team. Yep. They had just taken the lead from you, called a timeout, you go to the bench. And this is the first Mo Williams story that comes to mind is, just the way you got the ball and were able to put it away. Talk about that game and that play and coming from behind really because there wasn't much time left.
Well, it was a tough game for one. At the time, Alabama haven't won at Rupp Arena in 13 years. So that was, coming into that game, I was a freshman. So that was the first time I played there. And it's good to be naive or I don't know the word I'm looking for, but I didn't really care about the 13 years. I didn't really know until the game was over. This is the first time I won in 13 years, which didn't bother me at all anyway. But the fact was, I knew the history. I knew how big the game was. It was down the stretch. We came too far. It was a back and forth game. We was kind of down. Going to the end of the game, I remember them hitting a bucket that, kind of put them up a little bit. And we had the opportunity. Went into a timeout. Obviously, I wanted the ball. Got the ball. Made a tough shot. It was a floater over Tayshaun. And, Tayshaun about 6'8", 6'9", long. So, he tried to block it, a shot, a floater. It was a tough shot, went in. It kind of put us ahead for the win. Obviously we had to make some free throws down the stretch. But that was really the deciding factor, that shot, that play. But it was a tough shot. You got to have balls to take that shot on the road against a really good team. And I was prepared to take that shot just from all the countless hours of me, playing by myself. That's what I envisioned, that moment. So that moment felt easy. It felt like I've done it before.
Now let's talk about the game you thought I was going to talk about first. I'll just let you tell the story about that one.
Well, that's the Florida game. My freshman year, that memory never leaves. We win the SEC on our home court against Florida down the stretch, tie game. They miss a free throw. I get the rebound. I'm dribbling down the court. I'm taking the shot. Dribble baseline, kind of get double teamed. I swing it to Ernest Sheldon on the wing. He don't shoot it. Next thing you know, Petway is under the goal. He make a pass. And Antoine Petway, which is assistant at Alabama now, catching, lays it up with no time on the clock. We win outright, SEC champs against a very, very tough Florida team. So those memories alone, is some memories that I'll keep with me for the rest of my life.
When you talk about Alabama basketball, you talk about your teammates, but a lot of people forget how good Alabama basketball really was back in the late 80s, early 90s, into the 2000s when you go back and you look at the rosters. How important was that for you when you were choosing a school? I know Coach Godfrey got on you early, but...
Well, I think it was more so it wasn't the past. When you're young like that, in high school, you kind of learn about the past when you kind of get to the school or when you leave. I learned more so about that when I was at Alabama. But beforehand, it was just my future teammates that I'm very close with today. Everybody that I played with at Alabama my 2 years, some way, shape, or form, we have some form of relationship communicating. And this is over 15 years since I've been in college. So we've all have each other number. We all follow each other on some kind of social media where we can reach out to each other. And that's been constant like that ever since we left school. But that's why I chose the University of Alabama, just because of those relationships that I had when I was still in high school getting recruited there. I felt like I was part of the team when I was in high school. And therefore, obviously we won the SEC, and obviously we was number one in the country my sophomore year. And it wasn't because we was that much talented than everyone. We were just so much together. We were so much together as a unit, as one. We're college kids, so we go out to parties. We go out to, all these functions that college kids does. But one thing we did, we went together. We went as one, no matter what. We was a diverse team. But we all did things together, and we all stayed close, and we all stayed one. And that carried over to the court, with our success, how we practiced, how we prepared each other, how we was able to hold each other accountable, because we knew that we genuinely cared for one another. So that's one thing I can say about, my 2 years at Alabama. We was really one as a unit.
Travis Strom, joined by Mo Williams, Hornet Nation Unfiltered. Mo, before we talk about your NBA days and your coaching staff, let's talk about your family a little bit. You grew up in Jackson, heart of the SWAC. You go to Alabama. You weren't the first person from your family to get out of the SWAC. You had an older brother who went to West Point grad. Just talk about your family and how important your family was to you growing up and still is to you to this day, not in just Jackson, but in Mobile too.
Well, my family is important, very important. My mom, my dad raised me together, which is important. Having two parents in the house. My older brother always set a great example for me because he was very intelligent, very smart. He always reminded me that, you got two gifts, on the court and off the court, using both. So he was a great example in that regard. My sister, she was older than me also, and she was my mom worked a lot. My dad worked two jobs. She was actually my driver a lot of times to all these practices and all these, games that I had to, attend as a kid. And then I had a younger brother, which looked up to me, and he was an athlete also. And like you mentioned, my older brother went to West Point. My dad served in the Army also. My mom is a retired teacher. She did that for 27 years. My sister works in human resources. Obviously, my family is, HBCU grads, outside of myself and outside of my older brother that obviously graduated from West Point Academy. So, I grew up around the area that, from Jackson, Mississippi and Mobile, Alabama. That's kind of, my stomping ground. Something that I'm familiar with, something that I'm used to. So my family, they play a big part of who I am and my development. Who I am, how I raised my kids is similar to how I was raised, just the values that was instilled in me, and you try to duplicate that obviously with your current family, and that's what I try to do.
When you talk about family and you talk about HBCUs, you talk about Jackson, you talk about going to Alabama, there's a story that I've heard you tell, but I want the people at home to hear the story about, you going back to a homecoming in Jackson while you're at Alabama. People don't understand the importance of what the old saying goes, remember where you came from. And that's one thing that talking with you through the past, few weeks. And that's one thing that always comes up is you never forget where you came from. And just talk about going back to Jackson during a homecoming.
Well, that's true. I remember, I was at Alabama, and obviously we was playing Tennessee. I want to say it was Tennessee. I'm not sure on that, but let's just say it's Tennessee. And I remember, they was like, hey, you going to the game this weekend? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to the game. I'm going to Jackson State homecoming game. That's where I'm going. So I got in the car, drove my 2.5, 3 hours to Jackson, went to Jackson State homecoming and had a ball. It was just something I couldn't miss. And, it was just, what I grew up around. I knew the environment. I loved the environment. It was something that, I was comfortable with all environments, but that's kind of home. That was home. I can't miss Jackson State homecoming. ain't Miss Jackson State homecoming in years, so it was like I couldn't miss it. I almost felt a part of Jackson State because I was raised there. I've, been going to football games all my life, and my dad, still to this day, every football game, he sit out there in his RV in the parking lot cooking and got his TV out there, so that experience I've always been a part of. So it was funny, people, was getting ready for the big game on campus, and I was hitting the highway going down 80.
When you talk about everything that has come full circle, you get drafted second round in the NBA, 14 years in the league, you win an NBA title. You score 52 points in a game. You play with some of the greats. You play against some of the greats of all time. What's some of the stuff that kind of stands out? We've heard the stories about, the question has been asked of you, are you going to let your kids wear headbands? Because that's what a lot of people, when they go back and watch, and I do have a story I need to tell you because I needed you to go back and watch the clip about your headband, but just talk about some of the stuff in the NBA. And matter of fact, let's just go ahead. I'll ask that question about the headband. And it's the story that I've heard you tell, and we've had this conversation off air. It was the Orlando series. You get you're throwing the ball inbounds. You get it to LeBron. He hits the shot. Everybody goes up and celebrates. You go down and put your two hands down on your knee, and as soon as you stand up before you go celebrate, the first thing you do is you straighten up your headband and then you celebrate. I don't know if you knew you did that, but when you go back and watch the clip, because the game has been on a couple times here lately, you watch yourself and you fix your headband, then you go celebrate. What is it about you and the headband?
I don't know. It was just something. It was well, it was just something that, be honest with you, it was just something I started wearing, and it just became something that was a part of my kind of who I am. It's funny you say that because there's so many people I see today that just don't, like I am right now with no headband on. It's just like, man, the headband. I'm known by the headband. It's just, man, you used to wear the headband, huh? Like, yeah, I remember the headband. You just look different without the headband. And they always say that to me.
So, I think you need to, any thoughts about putting it on the first game just to go put it on and walk out on the court and take it off?
No, that probably won't happen. But I wouldn't be a coach that's opposed to my kids having headbands. I'm all for it. I'm in full support.
So let's talk about your NBA career. You get drafted. You play for probably one of the most renowned coaches in the league, Jerry Sloan, for a year. You move on and your career just expands out. You go to Minnesota, and to this day, you're still loved by the folks in Minnesota. We heard that story be told. Then your career continues. You have two stops in Cleveland. The last one, you win the 2016 NBA title, and we'll get into that story in a minute. But just talk about the way that your venture in the league went. You dropped 52 at one point. You wear 52 at another point in your career. And a lot of people, try to attribute that to you wearing the 52. But there's a story that goes along with that, too, that you didn't realize. And I think if I remember this right, you didn't realize it had been 52 years since Cleveland had done anything. And you're wearing 52. And then, boom, it happens.
Yeah.
About your career in the NBA. I mean, the stories I've heard, every time I've seen you tell a story, brings a smile to your face, and just being able to relive the memories.
Yeah, you're talking about 14 years of, living out something that you worked a long time to accomplish. So those memories will stay with me forever. Just being a rookie coming into the league, playing for Jerry Sloan, not knowing what's what, and in retrospect, knowing that was the best coach you ever played for. And that was just only for a year. So I appreciate that. That's almost my baptism to the NBA, and I couldn't ask for a better person. And then just, all the experiences, ever since then, Terry Stotts, Terry Porter, Larry Kostoviak, then going to Cleveland, playing for Mike Brown, obviously David Blatt, and then Flip Saunders, rest in peace. I can go down the line with, great coaches that I've been, in the presence of just throughout all those years, just, able to perform at a high level, being blessed to be in situations where I had the opportunity, to be the best me. Whereas, a lot of guys be in situations where they don't get the opportunity to show what they can do and perform, how they can perform at the best of their ability. And I was obviously blessed to have those opportunities. And it didn't happen for no reason. I know I had to work to get it. But with that being said, I had the opportunities. And I took advantage of each and every one of them. Going in Milwaukee was great after I left Cleveland. Milwaukee was great after I left Utah. And then obviously Cleveland came after Milwaukee, which was spectacular. And then obviously, going back to Cleveland, I had some years in there before I went back to Cleveland. But every year of my career, it was fun. Dealing with the last one, which was extremely grateful at the end, but it was a stressful year. But at the same time, anything that's inevitably great, you're going to have some moments where, you can't see forward, and you gotta believe, you gotta have faith. And I think that was a true testament of 2016 when we was down 3-1. Just everything that happened through the course of the year, just the ups and downs, just kind of, brought everything in perspective. Being down 3-1 was kind of how our year had been at that point, up to that point. And the strength that we had to get through it and win it, it really showed, just how far we came in that 1 year as a team, as a whole. So just my career has been, something, that a book will probably be written at some point in my life, because it's great. I mean, have some stories to tell, and it just can't be all on, 20-minute, 30-minute podcast, because it's true memories that, that I'm gonna have to, get out, for my kids one day, because, they don't know. I'm having another one now, so he'll never see me play. So all I will have is my memories, and, these memories that will never leave.
When you talk about your memories, Travis Strong, joined by Mo Williams, Hornet Nation Unfiltered, you talk about your memories of the NBA. Obviously everybody points to the one player you played for or played with in 2016, but let's talk about him in a minute. You play with another guy who, by the time his career is over, could be probably one of the best shooters to play in the game, and probably one of the best last-second shooters to play in the game, because he's hit some miraculous shots at the end of the game. And when I tell you this, I'm not even going to have to mention his name when I tell you this, but he hit one and made sure that he waved to Russell Westbrook and the rest of Oklahoma City when he hit the shot, which I still to this day think that's probably one of the toughest shots you'll see at the end of a game to win a game, and that's Damian Lillard. Talk about the relationship you have with him, and then, and it goes back to his rookie year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, when he was a rookie, I was in Portland. They signed me that summer, and they drafted him, and it was in retrospect just to have a veteran guard around him, because they drafted him high and they knew he was going to be pretty good. And it didn't take me long to realize that also. We connected. We have similar backgrounds, similar interests, and he just, looked up to me, because I've been there, done that at the time. And, and I just took him under my wing and just basically kind of showed him what I know, even though I know, his talents and his upside was way higher than mine, but he got to get to my level first before he can surpass me. So the person that I am, I gave him all my jewels. Hey, here you go. This everything I know. You take this for what it's worth and put it to what you're trying to accomplish, things that you want to do, your mentality. And it was more so a mentality thing, not more so how to play like I play. Our conversations are more real, or more genuine, or more about life. Just kind of his thoughts. And I'm like, no, that don't really make no damn sense. That's how I talk to him. We can get into a situation in our life as athletes, as NBA players. We develop a lot of yes people around us. And it's very refreshing to have some people around you at times that and trust that can say, that's done. and you can understand it and take it for its worth and better yourself. I am that person to him. I know sometimes he, sometimes don't want to hear it, but I'm going to say it. But at the same time, I'm completely supportive of everything he's doing also. But at the same time, I do not shy away from letting him know when I don't agree with something. I think he should approach it a different way or even look at it a different way. And that's just all about, me being on his side, because he know that, I have his best interests at heart.
Not a lot of people throughout their career, whether it be high school, college, NBA, even other professional leagues, can say that they played with some of the best. We heard the names that you played with in Jackson, but everybody always points to the fact you played with LeBron. They forget you played with probably two of the top 5, top 7 players all time in the NBA, because you had a guy that's about 7'2", about 300 pounds, playing in the middle with you, and Shaquille O'Neal. You had the opportunity to play with not just one, but 2 of the greats in the NBA. How much of their game and how much of what they did you take it absorb? Well,
their game, I just complimented both of those guys. So I wouldn't say take from their game. I took a lot from their mentality, how they run their corporations, which is themselves. How they approach what they had around them, the people they had around them, how they communicated in meetings, how they, handled their business per se, just off the court. I've always kept an eye to that and tried to dumb it down on my level. Those guys are mega stars, and has all kind of things going on in their life. And I always watch how they juggled it, how they stayed prepared with their main job, which is becoming a better athlete, but also using all those, accolades and things that's coming forward to them, into something that can better themselves off the court. And I've always kept an eye on that, how they responded to the media, even when they don't agree with something, how they responded to it. So I've always watched, from afar, just kind of from afar, but right next to them or close to them, just kind of watching and just seeing how they handle situations on and off the court.
When you talk about it, and I've heard this story multiple times, but this is for the folks at home that have never heard the story, and this is the only time I'm going to bring this up from now until the day we don't work together anymore. Again, Travis Roman, Mo Williams, Hornet Nation Unfiltered. You played with LeBron. Everybody says Michael is the best. Tell the story that you tell about closing your eyes, just for the people that have never heard it before.
Well, this is my thing. I get this all the time, and listen, I think Jordan is God. So let's just keep that in mind. But at the same time, I played with LeBron, and I know how great he is also. But I give the analogy to people because I've been in this conversation a multitude of times. And I say, just close your eyes. And when you close your eyes, you're just turning around in a circle. You're turning around in a circle. Michael and LeBron is turning around in a circle. And you close your eyes, you just point. And you count to 10. When you get to 10, you open your eyes and they stop. I guarantee you one thing, you wouldn't be mad who you pick.
And there's no better way to put it that way. And if anybody tries to come up with a different way, I think they just need to take that story, what you have told, and just play it over and over and over again.
There you go.
People at home, because you get into an argument. And then, like I said, excuse me, we had a chance to talk to Trey Johnson, and you got the chance to play with LeBron. And then I asked him, I was like, all right, well, let me ask you this. You got a chance to play with Kobe, and I put him in the same situation. And he tells the same story. He wouldn't say which was better. He just went and talked about their work ethic. As guys who played with these guys, it's a little different than the fans' view. A fan's view is they're trying to pick the best of whatever. As a person who played with them, you've played with them. You've seen the work ethic, so it's a little different for you.
Exactly.
So let's talk about that 2016 season. You're down 3-1. Golden State hadn't lost back-to-back games. I don't think all year, did they?
All year, haven't lost back-to-back games.
You got to win 3 in a row. And, I think how can I say this? All the I'm going to give credit to a decision that was made when it was 3-1 and, they decided to take the DNP off of Mo Williams' name, and all of a sudden Cleveland goes 3-0 and wins the finals. Is that about how it went?
I agree. That's exactly how it went. Exactly. But a little detail with that, just the 2016 season was a roller coaster. Starting out the season, I was playing over 30 minutes a game, was playing a lot, and I was really effective, averaging about 13, 14 a game. And, we're number one in the East, and Kyrie was out with knee surgery from the previous summer. And right on Christmas, and it's ironic because it happened playing Golden State. We're playing Golden State in Golden State on Christmas. And that's the game Kyrie returns, and all of a sudden I don't play. And that carried on for the rest of the season, basically. And so we go into the playoffs, and I'm really not playing in the playoffs also, but I'm staying ready. Just a little, story of going into then. I could have easily just been mad, been pissed, and not practice. I just continued to work. I told myself, I just always talk to myself and say, they don't need me. They gonna need me. I used to always say that. And make a long story short, we fast forward to the playoffs, and we go through the first round, we go through the second round, Eastern Conference Finals, we get through that. Now we're in the finals against Golden State. Obviously we're down 3-1. I still haven't played a game. And then all of a sudden, T. Lou come to me, shoot around, say, hey, Mo, you ready? You in the rotation tonight. I started shaking my head like, okay. So we win. And now, granted, Golden State haven't lost 2 games consecutively all season long. The only team that hasn't done this. And so we got to win 3 in a row. So that's impossible. So the odds against us. And I gained 5. Yeah, first minutes I really got into playoffs. Significant minutes, that is. We win that game. Then we go back to Cleveland. I play that game. Significant minutes. We win that game. So now they done lost 2 games in a row, something they haven't done all year. Now we go into game 7 on the road. Now they just lost 2 in a row. There's no way they're going to lose 3 in a row. It's impossible. So we go to game 7, and miraculously, I play that game, and miraculously we pull that game out by the performances of obviously everybody, but most in particular LeBron and Kyrie throughout their series in general. So, yes, to answer your question, things did not turn around until I got into the rotation and played my 7 or 8 minutes those games. But, just the experience alone, doing something that was impossible, doing something that has never been done in the history of the game, being it was 52 years since Cleveland has, done anything of that sort professionally. Coming back to Cleveland the following day, the next 48 hours, there's 1.5 million people downtown for the parade and for the activities, and there's nobody mad. It's just all joy, everybody happy. It's just an experience that always you're going to hold to you for the rest of your life, and everybody that's in Ohio that experienced that moment, they'll live that moment with themselves and their kids or their family members for the rest of their lives. That 52 that I wore that year will always mean something more than just 52 that I had the significance of why I wore it. So it meant more. So everything meant more, in 2016, which, obviously trumped me, to retire after that year, even though I could have played more. I just knew I wanted to get it to the next phase, which I am in now as far as coaching.
When you talk about getting into that next phase, I'm going to show you 2 pictures, and I want you to tell me what comes to mind. You're going to have to look at it on my phone. Can you see that picture right there for the folks at home that are listening? I'm gonna explain the picture, and then I'm going to let Mo explain more of that picture. That's a left-handed layup. You driving by Sean Livingston in Oakland,
the
NBA Finals, and you're wearing that jersey 52. Talk about that, just that play, if you can remember it, and how big it was to go into there and win.
It was huge. And to be honest with that play, I think we end up scoring. What happened was, if you go back and watch that game, I actually missed that layup. And I hit the floor. So they get the ball and go down the court on a fast break, and I'm kind of getting up. And they was trying to score and turn the ball over. And Braun got a steal, and I'm down on the other court by myself. And he just threw it down the court and I laid it up. So, therefore, that's what really happened in that photo. But to answer your question, you know, that was game 5. It might have been game 5. I'm not sure if that was game 5 or 7. I want to say it was game 5. But with that being said, it's just a memory that comes back to me just on how hard it was to accomplish those goals. Like, it was like gut-wrenching. Your heart just kind of have knots in them from the jump ball to the end of the game, each and every game. So when game 7 happened and that clock just ticked down to 0 and it was official, it was almost like the entire city, state, everybody that was on your shoulder and your back was just lifted. And that was from everybody. So I can imagine how it felt on LeBron's shoulder, because it was on my shoulder and it felt like boulders. So I can just imagine just the satisfaction he had from just having an opportunity to call himself a champion in the city of Cleveland.
Now, this reaction is probably going to be a little priceless when I show you this picture, because I know you got stories to tell. And for those of you at home, this is Mo Williams at the celebration in Cleveland. You know, and there's a story behind this picture. I've heard this story of the Mo Williams shirtless up on stage along with J.R. Smith. Yeah, and that's kind of the reaction I was expecting when I put that picture up.
So the story behind that is, you know, we to do something impossible, a lot of times you really got to think outside the box. You got to, you know, be insane, kind of crazy, you know, just think outside the box. And we're talking about a Golden State team that hasn't lost, you know, 2 games in a row all season. Now we talking about 3. So we really got to believe we can do it. You know, any fraction of doubt, you're going to lose a game. And we win game 5. Then we're going back for game 6 at our place. And all the thing we was thinking was, they not celebrating on our court. They're not celebrating on our court, not on our court, not on our court. So that was our motivation to win. So now we won 2 in a row. Okay, 3rd one is impossible. But the whole time, we was just kind of tricking our mind, just saying, man, yep, we're going out here to win a game. Listen, man, when we win game 7, that's all we were saying. When we win game 7, man, the parade going to be crazy. You know, and then people just start saying, man, I'm no shirt. I ain't wearing no shirt. I might just be out there in boxers. You know, it was just all kind of wild stories. And, you know, and then obviously me and JR was one of the ones like, man, no shirt, man. I'm with you, JR. No shirt, man. We ain't doing it. So we're saying all these things, and it actually happened for us. We winning. We had to live up to the things that we said we was going to do. So if you go back to our parade, it was about 3 of us that had no shirts on the entire time. And obviously JR got all the love, you know, from the media. So it was kind of like it was a JR thing. But at the same time, that was something that was already premeditated, something we talked about, something that we just hyped ourselves up on. Like, when we win, when we go to the parade, it was just, we already foresee that it was going to happen. So when it happened, it was like, we have to do what we said we was going to do. Ain't no way we're going to turn back now.
Last question about the NBA Finals, and then we'll get into the last 2 things we're going to talk about, which is your coaching staff and your philosophies and just things that are going on in the world today. But question is, you know, everybody always focuses on what Cleveland did to win, what it's like playing with LeBron. Here's a question I got for you, because obviously you know that the younger crowd is growing up and they're all shooters. They're not the crew that's going to drive to the game. How hard was it as a point guard to guard either Steph or Clay during those finals when you know they were catch and shoot guys, or Steph would take you 40 feet away from the basket and just launch one, and you just look at the coaches, the staff, and just be like, what am I supposed to do?
Oh, man, it's a team sport. It's a team sport. And when you talking about guys like that, you need help. I mean, there's nobody can guard those guys alone, and we did it collectively. You know, at the time, it was a long season, and it was a even longer series. So we just made it a point just to be really, really physical with Steph and be really physical with Clay, and just every time we get an opportunity to bump them a little bit, just give a little energy out of them, we did it. And I think it played, you know, somewhat of a factor. We couldn't, you know, obviously stop those guys, but he did miss some shots that he will make in his sleep. And hopefully that was a factor of us, you know, sticking to our game plan.
You know, and before we move, I'll still say you got to credit Ty Lue for making the ultimate decision and bringing you on to get that 3-0.
I agree.
Started. You know, I got to give that the credit as winning the series, no matter what
Coach
else
of the
happens.
year.
So, as talking about coaching, Coach of the Year, let's talk about the staff you brought in. You know, the questions have been posed to you. Again, Travis Strum, joined by Mo Williams, new head coach of Alabama State men's basketball here on Hornet Nation Unfiltered. The question had been posed to you, you know, who are you going to hire? How are you going to do it? And, you know, the answer you gave was, I'm going to bring a veteran guy in that has been around the game for a little while. And I think you did more than that. You brought in a guy that has head coaching experience in Danton Jackson. You brought a guy in that has been at the highest level of basketball. He's an associate head coach at UAB before he got here. But more importantly, you brought a guy in that's coached you before in the summer league. Talk about just having Danton. Before we talk about the other guys, let's talk about Danton and what he means to your staff.
Well, you know, he's the heart and soul, you know, of my program and my vision. I've been knowing him since I've been 14 years old. That's how our relationship goes back that far. And it, you know, obviously it's funny how it works, because at that time I was a kid. You know, he was he was the coach, and he was, you know, the mentor of myself. And now it's kind of reversed, which is funny, and we joke about it. But at the same time, just his expertise and his experience is one. But it's somebody I know personally. It's somebody that we've been in each other's lives, you know, from day one up until this point. Even though I played in the NBA and I started coaching, and he's been coaching in this world. I remember at 14, 15 years old, spending summers and sleeping on his couch, and he's training me every day. So we go back a long way. We share all the same philosophies on how that we feel like things should be run, type of players that we want to recruit, type of players that even, you know, we want to develop or part of what we want to go. So everything, you know, all the boxes checked with him. You know, it was a no-brainer to me. We've always had the conversation, even when I got into college coaching. Hey, if I get a job, when I get a job, you know, just be ready. You know, and it worked out. It worked itself out. You know, obviously they made a coaching change at UAB, and you know, I didn't have to ask him to leave. It just ironically just kind of fell into place, you know. So I make the statement all the time, you know, God don't make mistakes. They never have. He never have, and he never will. So it was just a perfect situation, and it happened at the perfect time.
Now we'll talk about, you know, another guy that you've got some lifelong ties to, and kind of followed the same path you did out of high school, went to high school, you know, went starting college, led his team to the NCAA tournament, top 10 scoring as a player, played multiple years, professional basketball, both NBA, international, followed the same path you did, started as coaching in the EYBL and one of your teams to top it off, and that's Trey Johnson. Talk about what he means and what he brings to the table for you.
You know, he works his behind off. That's for one. You know, he has a goal, and he always, when he has a goal, he always obtain it. And it's always unconventional in ways, just taking the best out of every opportunity and just, turning it into wine. And that's something he's done just throughout his life. Just kind of watching, his maturation process has been incredible, in my opinion. Just the routes he take, or even forced to take or have to take, however you may word it, but it just to the point he's always in a situation where he's better, and then he always make the best out of it, and he always get to the end goal just like everybody else. He just takes different routes. So it was important for me to have, him with me with all the knowledge that he has, because it's going to be a lot of our kids that may have to take those different routes also. And knowing that you can take those routes, those unconventional routes, to be successful, his living proof. And he's no different from, myself that, was a McDonald's All-American. I went to Alabama. Yeah, he wasn't a McDonald's All-American. He went to Alcorn. Then he had to call Jackson State and say, hey, can you take me? Will you guys be willing to take me? And wasn't even on a full scholarship, was just on a baseball scholarship playing basketball. And then obviously he ended up getting the basketball scholarship the following year. People don't know these stories. Right. And he ended up being one of the best players in the country, and obviously being over a 10-year professional athlete. And now he's a Division I, assistant basketball coach. So I know his story, and I understand, what it takes to be successful. And you got to take different routes sometimes. You can't be scared of change. You can't be scared of adjustments. And that's all about coaching. You can't be scared of change. You can't be scared to adjust.
When you talk about other additions to your staff, you got a guy that you brought in that's got basketball bloodlines that run deep, an Alabama native, played at Alabama. But I think the one thing that stands out is the quote you gave, that you said, this guy reminds me of me when I was his age, and he has everything, all the traits to be a head coach. And that's Andrew Steele. Talk about just this young man. And and I say that not loosely, but very real. He's a young man coaching basketball.
He's young, but at the same time, I saw a lot of myself in him because of the fact that I was young at one point and I was hungry, and I felt like I knew a lot, but I knew I didn't know a lot. And I just was willing to learn from the people that was willing to show me the ropes, and I was fortunate enough to be around people that knew I had the potential to be a future head coach, and they prepared me for this opportunity as a young coach. And I look at him the same way, just one of those guys that's really, really hungry, that wants to succeed, has all the characteristics, the personality to be a head coach. And I know that will happen in due time. So it's just my job to give him them tools to be prepared when he get that opportunity.
And then you retained Tyrone Levitt, who joined the staff 2 years ago, and an Alabama State alum. But as you put it, 17 years overseas, and that takes a lot of discipline to be able to do that. Talk about him a little bit, and then we'll move on to the last two things we have.
Well, with Ty, it was a no-brainer. He's obviously alumni of the university. And secondly, I can't be repetitive enough. 17 years to play in a professional sport. It takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of grit. It takes, a lot of commitment. And those things that you look for in the characteristics of a partner, of an assistant, someone that you can depend on. So with that, it was a no-brainer. Getting to know him, just from the short time that, we've known each other. I know for a fact, I'm 100,000% in agreement that was the right decision, because everything on paper about him, just actually meeting him, it's beyond what's on paper. He's a great guy. He wants to get better. He wants to learn, and he works hard. So that's all you can ask for as a coach, and things get better in that regard.
You've done all of your head coaching via Zoom, via phone. How nice is it going to be for you when you finally get in person with your team and be able.
I'm looking forward to it. I really am. Just count down the days, to be honest with you.
So when you count down the days, I've got to ask this question, but I know there's 27, 28 other games on the schedule. How many Alabama State fans are going to be in the gym in Jackson when we go back to Jackson State and play?
Well, hopefully a lot, but at the same time, we'll see. I'm not really too concerned with it. I just want to win at the end of the day. But I know for a fact I have at least 10. That's my mom and dad, sister, brother. I know they'll be in there.
Well, and let's change topics a little bit, and this will be the last thing we talk about. But it's probably the most important thing we'll talk about today and moving forward. In the past, you've made comments of I've never been this active on social media, and it just happens to a lot of people are going to be, oh, well, that's what happens when you become a head coach. No, you being active on social media this day and age is totally different. You talk about change, you talk about other things. The topic at hand today is just the social injustice going around, and you've been active, you've voiced, you put a statement out. But for those at home, and especially for somebody like me that doesn't understand fully what goes through minds each and every day of what goes on, in the world, just talk about just that aspect of what's going on right now and just the importance of it. And then there's a follow-up question to that ties into where you're going to be coaching at the same time.
All right. Well, for one, man, just understanding and educating yourself. And that goes for not only African-American blacks, but just the world in general. I just think that when things have been in your blinders for so long, you really don't understand the ramifications from the oppression and the way just life has been going just for year after year after year after year after year. I use myself as an example. I've been successful for a long time. I haven't stayed in poverty. I haven't been around poverty. So therefore, yeah, I can understand it a little bit because when I grew up, I know what it looks like. But there's some people in the world that don't even know what it looks like. They don't really understand it. I think until we understand the understanding of what we're fighting for and the inequality or justice that we're talking about, until I think as a whole that everybody really, really understands it and understands that the kneeling aspect of what's going on is not about a flag. The fact that people will make a statement, it's about a flag or all lives matter, that further lets me know that they really don't have a clear understanding on what the purpose is of everything that we're talking about, because it has nothing to do with neither of those things. So for me, I just think it's just the education aspect. And when I talk about education, I'm educating myself even more about things that I already should know, or people would think that we should know, but we don't, because we weren't born in the 40s, we weren't born in the 30s, we weren't born in the 20s. And obviously those are times that growing up, especially me growing up, they hid that from our Black history because they never taught me that. They never told me this. These are things that I've been reading up on lately or been hearing about as an adult, but still didn't indulge in learning more so about it until, obviously I was woke. Now I'm woke. Now I want to learn these things. Now I want to know what happened. Now I want to know my history. I want to understand where we went wrong. I want to understand what are white people thinking. When I say white people, white supremacy of people in power, what were they thinking? And understand on how they want the world. And I grew up in a world where you think about, there's no racism. Everything is changing. And, you have white friends. And I was able to have white friends, white teammates, go to white friends' house and play and hang out and all these type of things I grew up around. But to obviously have the education aspect of it and understand that it's kind of still the same thing, but just in different ways. And you got to understand and educate yourself all aspects of what's going on to better yourself, to get a better understanding on exactly what's going on and how to proceed and make things better.
Let me ask you this, and do you feel, and this may be a little lengthy question, do you feel that this is the right place, right time for you, and it just happens to be when the social injustice has reached new heights because of what's going on, especially in the South now? But being in Montgomery, where the bus boycott took place, civil rights movement is a staple. Martin Luther King walked down Dexter Avenue, gave his speech on the Capitol steps. You've got his church that he preached at right there on Dexter Avenue. You're at an HBCU, right place, right time?
Perfect place, perfect time. I said that to a lot of people lately, just throughout this process. This process did not, wasn't even a factor at all on why I took the job. All this came after.
Right.
And that further let me know that, God don't make his mistakes. He put me in this situation for a reason. And, I'm here to impact these kids' lives. And it's not about, a race thing. It's just the fact that it motivates me more to teach these kids understanding on, how to be a black man, how to be, how to carry yourself, how to understand what the world is about and what's expected of you, being that I went through it myself. So for me, it's just mentoring them, kind of showing them, the way that I've done things and I've seen other successful black men do things.
Well, folks, that's Mo Williams, a version of Mo Williams that you haven't heard or seen on any of the interviews that have taken place over the last 2.5, 3 weeks. That's Mo Williams from growing up in Jackson, through the NBA, from his times at Alabama, now at Alabama State. Mo, we appreciate your time, and we look forward to being able to spend some more time with you as time goes on and hopefully get back to normal in 2020, 2021.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks.
That's Mo Williams, folks. And when we come back, we'll have more guests on Hornet Nation Unfiltered. Until next time. You've been listening to Hornet Nation Unfiltered. We'll be back next week with another special guest from Alabama State's past. Until next time.